everyone. This is John Kountouris, and you're listening to my show, Greek News on Demand. Greek News on Demand. Greek News on Demand is based on our news website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That is one word, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. There you can go for the latest and most revealing news on Greece and on the relationship between Greece, the United States, and other big power players in the world that affect Greece, its interior and exterior policies, etc., etc. There we publish the biggest bombshell articles on what's going on in Greece's economy, and so on and so forth. So today we have a very good show for you because it has to do with the latest Wikileaks bombshell leaks that have to do with Hillary Clinton and the role that she played in the Greek economic crisis. And the role that she played in this economic crisis, from what it appears and from the evidence that we've gathered, was monumental. It was catalytic. And it could be very well the actual impetus, the driving force, which actually led to this economic crisis that the Greeks are going through right now. In other words, Hillary Clinton, from what it appears, is the actual creator of this Greek economic crisis. Yes, you heard that correctly. Hillary Clinton is the inspiration behind the Greek economic crisis. Now, in lieu of all the recent WikiLeaks discoveries, this should not come as a surprise for anyone, because the stuff that WikiLeaks is coming out with is just mind-boggling. I mean, not only is it confirming everything that the conspiracy theorists have said about Hillary Clinton, about her relationship with Israel, her relationship with the Illuminati, her relationship with the Rothschilds, her relationship with big-name intelligence and investment companies that have played a role in the crisis in Syria and in the rest of the Middle East. I mean, we're talking about here stuff that not even conspiracy theorists could, ever conjure up, could ever dream up of. Stuff that is just, not only does it confirm the conspiracy theories, it goes to show you that the conspiracy theorists have been vindicated and then some. I mean, that's really what's going on here with Hillary Clinton. And as you all know, as more and more of these leaks come out, more and more people, unfortunately, are dropping dead during the actual campaign. And no one in the U.S. government is saying anything. Gee, what does that tell you about the U.S. government? What does that tell you about basically how the U.S. government views crimes? Crimes that have been committed by this woman and her husband, former U.S. President Bill Clinton. All it tells you, all this shows you, is the fact that the government itself is composed of criminals. Obama is a criminal. All of these people are criminals. And that's why the United States is ripe for a revolution. The United States is at a breaking point. It's at a watershed. And people are waking up. I mean, no doubt about it. It's not just the internet anymore. It's mainstream news media. Mainstream news media is coming out now and talking about all this stuff. Mainstream news media now, we're talking about Fox and CNN, both liberal, let's say, and conservative networks, that are coming out and straight out discussing all of the stuff that Hillary Clinton has been involved in. And is probably still involved in, because she doesn't give a damn, basically, about what she's done and the repercussions that have occurred as a result. She just wants to be president. And she'll kill her way to get there, and that's exactly what she's doing. She's killing people right now. And, of course, Julian Assange, about a week ago, went on this European news channel, and he hinted at the fact that the source behind basically the recent leaks about the Democratic National Convention is none other than former, here's the key word, former Democratic National Convention staffer Seth Rich, who the other day, well, not the other day, not the other day, it was actually exactly a month ago, wound up dead right after a convention of the Democratic National Convention, right after one of their, political meetings. There's a lot of stuff that has been reported about this from the mainstream news media, and I think by this time, everyone knows that Hillary Clinton is basically murdering her way to the White House. I mean, that's essentially what she's doing here. So, Hillary Clinton, too, has played a role in, let's say, the death, or let's say the extermination of the Greek economy. And as you're going to see from this key report from Fox News, which basically took the effort to research all this stuff in the Wikileaks leaks, they had to actually get a request from the federal government, according to the Freedom of Information Act, in order to comb through some of Hillary's emails. And as they did, I'm talking about certain journalists from Fox News. I'll read the details in a bit, but as they did, they stumbled across unbelievable stuff about Hillary Clinton and her role in Greece. So Hillary Clinton is basically murdering and annihilating her way to the White House in so many different ways. And her blood trail basically starts from her stint as the U.S. Secretary of State from 2009 and on. And the consequences of which are being felt everywhere today, and they're all coming to the light. And as you know, whatever is in the darkness will eventually come out into the light. That's a quote from Jesus. So, hold on, because I got a lot of interesting stuff to share with you. And basically, we're going to help take our country back. We're going to help save America. We're going to help save Greece and the whole world. So, stand by, and I think you're going to enjoy this show.
Στάσαι εδώ, να βγω στον δρόμο να χορέψω να σε μπέκικο. Πάνω στην ασφαλτό μαζί με ύφος ψεύτικο. Να με κοιτάζεις, κατά πως με λογαριάζεις. Να με κοιτάζεις, πως με λογαριάζεις. Θα νοστάσεις στη διπλή γραμμή του δρόμου, όσο κοστίζει μια παράβαση του νόμου. Να σταματήσω όλη κυκλοφορία για να φωνάξω ότι πρόδωσες την πιο όμορφη ιστορία.
Okay, so here we go with Fox News' report on this. Now, of course, you know Fox News is mainstream news media, and we have to be careful what they say. But nevertheless, though, the truth does come out from time to time on the mainstream news media. We just have to be smart enough and study up enough on trends to really understand what's going on. And that's really what we do as activists. I am an activist, but I'm also, of course, a journalist for mainstream news TV. radio, and for a newspaper in Greece. But above all, I consider myself an activist journalist because I don't recognize with the meaning of a modern-day journalist. The meaning of a modern-day journalist is construed basically to impose this stringent meaning of what a journalist should be today. In other words, he or she should follow basically what the mainstream news line of propaganda is, what the line of propaganda of the government is, and shouldn't veer from that, or else he's considered a renegade. He's considered basically a conspiracy theorist, or he's considered a yellow journalist, like they used to call such journalists during the Vietnam era, etc., etc. Anyway, the title of this article is called Clinton Sought Secret Info on EU Bailout Plans as Son-in-Law's Doomed Hedge Fund Gambled on Greece, by Peter Byrne. It was published July the 3rd, 2016, this year, foxnews.com. Now, as you're going to see, the son-in-law of Hillary Clinton's son-in-law, Mark Malvinsky, is a complete bubbling idiot because he tried to take advantage of Greece, and he failed. And it deserves him right. So we read, hedge fund manager Mark Malvinsky had friends in high places when he bet big on a Greek economic recovery. But even the keen interest of his mother-in-law, then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, wasn't enough to spare him and his investors from financial tragedy. In 2012, Malvinsky, the husband of Chelsea Clinton, created a $325 million basket of offshore funds under the Eagle Vale Partners banner through a special arrangement with investment bank Goldman Sachs. Wow, look at this, Goldman Sachs. We continue. The funds have lost tens of millions of dollars, predicting that bailouts of the Greek banking system would pump up the value of the country's distressed bonds. One fund, exclusively dedicated to the Greek debt, suffered near total losses. Wow, what an idiot. Clinton stepped down as Secretary of State in 2013 to run for president. But newly released emails from 2012 show that she and the Clinton Foundation consultant, Sidney Blumenthal, shared classified information about how German leadership viewed the prospects for a Greek bailout. Clinton also shared protected, quote-unquote, State Department information about Greek bonds with her husband at the same time that her son-in-law aimed his hedge fund at Greece. So basically here we have a clear reference of how Mark Malvinsky basically put Greece in his crosshairs with his hedge fund in order to make money, not even caring about what the consequences will be, and knowing damn well that at this time Greece was undergoing a major economic crisis. So this guy's a criminal. Let's make that clear right here. Continuing with the same article, that America's top diplomat kept a sharp eye on intelligence, assessing the chances of a bailout of the Greek central bank is not a problem. However, sharing such sensitive information with friends and family would have been highly improper. Federal regulations prohibit the use of non-public information to further private interests or the interests of other. The mere perception of a conflict of interest is unacceptable. It's not only unacceptable, it's illegal. Anyway, continuing, through its press representative, Eagle Vale declined to comment for this story. Clinton's campaign press office did not respond to a request for a comment. Isn't that interesting? Continuing, a former Goldman Sachs broker himself, Malvinsky, formed Eagle Vale Management with two ex-Goldman Sachs partners in October of 2011. As a quote-unquote global macro firm, Eagle Vale strategies to seek profit opportunities in political volatile situations. Malvinsky set up several funds in the Cayman Islands, a secretive tax haven, with Goldman Sachs serving as Eagle Vale's prime broker and banker. The giant brokerage firm has a checkered history of manipulating the value of the Greek debt to the detriment of Greece. the same month that Eagleville incorporated its offshore arm, Gary Gensler, the head of the United States Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which polices hedge funds, emailed Clinton that a bailout by the European Central Bank could, quote, turn market sentiment, end quote, in favor of Greek bonds. So here we have Gary Gensler, who's regulating basically derivatives for the federal government, sharing inside information with Hillary Clinton. I mean, it just goes to show you that the biggest criminals out there are the people basically that call other people criminals. Continuing, Gensler had previously worked as co-head of finance at Goldman Sachs. He is now the financial director of Clinton's election campaign. Goldman Sachs has donated up to $5 million to the Clinton Foundation and $860,000 to Hillary Clinton's political campaigns. Shortly after Clinton resigned, Goldman Sachs paid her $675,000 in speaking fees. Clinton's deputy in charge of economic policy was Robert Hormats, a former vice chairman of Goldman Sachs. Hormats and Clinton shared an extensive email trail about the possibility of bailing out Greece, including classified materials and internal State Department memos about the debt from the U.S. ambassador to Greece. Now, as a side note, the U.S. ambassador to Greece that I just mentioned here from this article is none other than Daniel Speckhard. Daniel Speckhard is a criminal because Daniel Speckhard basically was assigned as the U.S. ambassador in Greece. I think it was starting around 2007. And this gentleman basically forged ties with the political opposition in Greece at this time and on. I'm talking about the PASOK party, along with, of course, its then president, George Papandreou, who eventually became, in 2009, the Greek prime minister. So, Daniel Speckhard forged a relationship with this government, and when George Papandreou eventually became the Greek prime minister, they both, together with the U.S. State Department and with Israel, basically began all this criminal activity together at the expense of Greece. And it also took on major political extensions. For example, they all aimed together, all these parties that I just mentioned, to get rid of the then Greek Prime Minister Kostas Karamanlis from the New Democracy Party, because Kostas Karamanlis wanted to make Greece a very powerful and strong country. He was forging closer ties with Russia. He and Putin had just created the gas agreement called Burgas-Alexandroupoli. The Burgas-Alexandroupoli agreement, which would basically enrich Greece and, of course, Russia. Of course, the United States wouldn't have that. And as we read a lot of the different leaks from Wikileaks, all of this has come out. So, basically, these parties aimed to get rid of Kostas Karamanlis, and eventually they forced him basically into elections in October of 2009, and he lost. And George Papandreou took over. Now, there's a reason why he lost. The reason why he lost is because there was political machinations going on behind the scenes. And all this is connected with the Bilderberg Group, with the Rothschilds, and, of course, with all these sinister forces I just mentioned. Now, this may sound like conspiracy theories to some, but in the spring of 2009, the Bilderberg Group had its official meeting in Greece. And according to the late, great Bilderberg reporter from American Free Press, Jim Tucker, he had got information on the ground there in Greece that basically the Rothschilds themselves had descended on Greece at that time and told Karamanlis that he would step out of the way and that George Papandreou would take over for him because they were pissed at him. They were pissed at Karamanlis for doing what he was doing. And what he was doing was making Greece a strong nation again in so many different ways. In so many different ways. So that's a whole different broadcast in itself. But Daniel Speckard was the then American Prime Minister to Greece. And basically, according to Wikileaks, he was getting information from George Papandreou and then sending it to Hillary Clinton so that she and her cronies can use this information to bet accordingly on certain factors of the Greek economy in order to make money. They were betting on basically derivatives. That's why I had previously read that her son-in-law, Mark Melvinsky, had formed his own hedge fund. So Daniel Speckard is a criminal. I had met him in on November the 4th in 2008. It was the night of the U.S. presidential elections between McCain and Obama. I had met him in the Grand Breton Hotel in downtown Athens, more specifically in Constitutional Square in Athens. That's where all the protests take place, as you see them on TV all the time there in Greece. So when I met him, it was a pre-election party for the Republicans in Greece, because both the Democrats and the Republicans basically have offices in countries all over the world, as you know. They have offices in Greece. So I was invited basically there by the Greek representative of the U.S. Republican Party in Greece. Her name is Katarina Papathanasiou. So when I met Speckard, I told him straight the following. Sir, why are you people for decades destroying Greece on all fronts? Why do you prefer weak Greece over against a strong Turkey? Why is the U.S. government for decades working basically to diminish Greece's influence and national sovereignty? Why are you all doing this? I mean, it's clear. There's all this proof. You can't deny what I'm saying. So, as he's shaking my hand, he's like shaking my hand for like a minute straight. He looks at me and he says, "What can we do? All this has to do with politics. What can we do? Yeah, you're right, sir. What can we do?" That's what he told me. The U.S. ambassador to Greece. We're talking about the highest U.S. official basically representing Greece. If that doesn't tell you something, nothing will. But this shouldn't come as a surprise. But in retrospect, years later, what I found out is exactly what I'm reading to you right now. That this guy, in conjunction with George Papandreou, with Israel, with the State Department, with Hillary Clinton, were forging a plan to take out the then Greek Prime Minister Kostas Karamanlis, to get rid of him, because he wasn't serving their interests. And what they did was basically, at the same time, gather critical information about the Greek debt in order to basically profit off of it. Now, the whole thing about Karamanlis came to a head with elections, like I said before, in October of 2009, whereupon George Papandreou from the PASOK party became the new Greek prime minister. But just barely months into his stint as Greek prime minister, he was already allowing Hillary Clinton, Daniel Speckard, and the State Department to basically get critical information about the Greek debt. And this is exactly basically what he was doing at this time, George Papandreou. And there was one gentleman from the Greek intelligence services, high official, named Kostas Aggelakis, who basically foresaw all of this back in actually 2004, whereupon the U.S. State Department, George Papandreou, Israel, were already at that time trying to get rid of Kostas Karamanlis. Kostas Karamanlis was the prime minister from 2004 up until October 2009. So I've done a major interview with this gentleman's attorney, with Kostas Aggelakis' attorney, for both a Greek newspaper and for Greek TV. And basically, what this gentleman did was expose what George Papandreou was already doing at this time in conjunction with Israel and with the State Department at the expense of Greece. So this gentleman, unfortunately, has paid a heavy price for telling the truth, and they have tried to lock him away, put him in prison on basically trumped up charges that are much ado about nothing. His case has basically gone through the court system in Greece for years now, since about 2009, up until actually today. Every time he's had a court hearing with a certain court in Greece, he's been vindicated. Now his case has reached the Supreme Court in Greece. So hopefully he'll be vindicated very soon. Now, going back though to Hillary Clinton, she basically formed a good, tight relationship with George Papandreou starting in 2010. Okay? And basically, her relationship with him was purely based on interests, on greed. She didn't give a damn about Greece, about the Greek economy, or about the Greek bailout. And as you've heard in my other broadcast, the Greek bailout itself is a sham. Greece never needed a bailout because the whole concept, the whole idea of Greece having this huge debt and needing a bailout was all made up. It was all conjured up. So everyone knew this at this time, and everyone still, of course, knows this because more information has come out about all of this. Hillary Clinton knew all this, and that's why, in this article on Fox News, we see that she was trying to forge a plan by which to create a fake crisis in Greece. She was the main driving force behind all of this. So, Daniel Speckhard, there's a lot about him that I've written. But know that he played a role in this. This is all according to WikiLeaks. Know that he was giving basically information to Hillary Clinton about this. And also, too, on February 2010, right around February 2010, he began to form not only a tight relationship with the then Greek government of George Papandreou, but also a tight relationship with Greek intelligence, with the Greek intelligence services. And this has all come out in WikiLeaks too. So when you have tight relations, relations basically with the intelligence services of another country, that means you're going to get all the secrets of that country. And that's exactly how Daniel Speckhard was basically able to inform Hillary Clinton about what was going on in Greece. I'm going to play for you a clip now from the YouTube channel of the Brookings Institution. The Brookings Institution is a huge think tank group in New York and in other parts of the United States that basically preps political leaders to take over governments of countries around the world. It's basically a, how should I put it, a secret open society. Google the Brookings Institution and you'll see what I mean. This video was published July the 15th, 2012. Here we have Daniel Speckhard speaking at the Brookings Institution on the Greek election at that time and the future of the euro. Because at this time, Greece was going through an election period. The political system has to break in order to have something new come out of Greece. Isn't that something? Isn't that interesting? This is what the Brookings Institution writes in the description of their video. Let's read that again. Daniel Speckhard at the Brookings Institution on the Greek election and the future of the euro. The political system has to break in order to have something new come out of Greece. Gee, that's odd. What do they mean by it has to break? Continuing, on June the 14th, Brookings hosted a discussion previewing the Greek legislative elections and their implications on the euro crisis. Now, let's hear Speckhard speak here, and I want you to pay attention to what he says and also the tone of his voice. Here we go.
It's not like this country is still at the beach. This country has done, I think, some pretty significant strides, but hasn't been able, as Desmond has said, to do it in the pace that the international community demands because of their financial situation. I think the question on how to sort of how to revitalize this situation. For me, it starts with the political process. It's a good news, bad news story in terms of what's happened here. The way Greece has been governed over the last 40 years has been this trading off of these two main parties. There was an incestuous relationship between the political class, the business class, and the media. And they all work together to keep themselves in power and to reward each other. And the Greeks knew that. You were able to have that system and have plenty left for everybody else in the pie if the economy is growing and you're getting a lot of outside resources coming in from the European Union. But when things got tight, that no longer is able to hold as a system. And Greeks, I think, even understood this several years ago when I was there, the smart ones, that the political system has to break for something new to come out of Greece. So I'm very sad to see what's happening in Greece, but my hope for Greece is that this political fracture that's happened and the fact that these new parties are growing out of nowhere and the left is surging and everything else is a message to the political class in Greece that you're going to need a new system if this country is going to carry forward.
Oh, isn't that sweet? He's sad that Greece is going through a political crisis. A crisis which he basically helped to form. I mean, what's this guy? Who does this guy think he is? And we have all the proof now from WikiLeaks. I just stated here from Fox News. Fox News, again, dug into these emails that WikiLeaks provided us. And they found this information. And again, I read, Clinton's deputy in charge of economic policy was Robert Hormats, a former vice chairman of Goldman Sachs. Hormats and Clinton shared an extensive email trail about the possibility of bailing out Greece, including classified materials and internal State Department memos about the Greek debt from the U.S. ambassador to Greece. And at that time, the U.S. ambassador was Daniel Speckhard. Again, monitoring Greece was part of the Clinton's job description. We're continuing with our article here. Again, monitoring Greece was part of Clinton's job description. But ethically, that does not mean that a family member should make bets that depend upon the actions of another family member, leaving aside the question of whether insider quote-unquote information was divulged to Malvinsky by Blumenthal or his parents-in-law. During 2001, Secretary of State Clinton lobbied the leaders of the European governments to bail out the Greek financial system. She advocated imposing austerity measures on Greece. In other words, raising taxes, cutting public employee salaries, and eliminating social welfare programs. She did all this to make the investors holding the Greek debt happy. Isn't that nice of her? She did all that to make investors who hold the Greek debt happy. Continuing, driven by investors' belief that Greece would be bailed out, the speculative value of its debt, of the Greek debt, climbed into the stratosphere in late 2011 and early 2012. The bonds gradually sank to 2008 levels by the end of the year, with temporary spikes as investors alternatively gained and lost confidence in the prospect of a bailout. In other words, there were multiple opportunities for Greek bond hedge funds to buy cheaper and sell dear. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Continuing, at a February 2012 summit meeting at the Eurozone debt crisis in Munich, Clinton urged leaders of the European Union to commit to a Greek bailout. Wow. I mean, here we have Clinton basically pushing things behind the scene. Again, we read at a February 2012 summit meeting about the Eurozone debt crisis in Munich, Clinton urged leaders of the European Union to commit to a Greek bailout. Now, this is at a time when Greece was basically seeking a second bailout from the Troika of Europe. And the Troika, again, is the European Community, the European Central Bank, and the IMF, International Monetary Fund. So this is a very critical period in Greek history during February 2012. And eventually, of course, they got the bailout, as we all know. Continuing, in April, Eaglevale, the same investment firm of Mark Malvinsky, booked $19 million from a dozen investors. California's public employee pension fund, CalPERS, reportedly invested $13 million. Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein jumped in with his own money, as did Chelsea Clinton's former boss, Mark Lazary, who specializes in buying distressed debt. Gee, isn't that something? Everyone jumped into basically Eaglevale's nice little hedge fund here, created by their partner, Mark Malvinsky. We're talking about, the actual CEO of Goldman Sachs, and of course CalPERS, the big retirement pension fund here in California where I live. And CalPERS, as you all know, is a very, very notorious employee pension fund. They invest their money around the world, and it doesn't matter where they invest. They invested even basically in suspect places. Anyway, that's another story, but it says a lot when you have CalPERS jumping in the pot, which, of course, doesn't surprise us knowing its past and its history. Continuing, in May 2012, Blumenthal emailed 2 confidential memos about the Greek debt situation to Clinton. Hormats was included in the email loop. The first memo, Blumenthal told Clinton, is, quote, based on conversations with German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble and those close to him, the information comes from an extremely sensitive source and should be handled with care. This information must not be shared with anyone associated with the German government. End quote. So here we have Blumenthal, Clinton's associate, telling her straight out that he gathered information from the German government about the Greek debt, and basically not to tell anyone, particularly, of course, the German government. Continuing, the unnamed spy reported that in secret meetings with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Schäuble had searched for a politically acceptable way to bail out the Greek debt in order to avoid collapsing the economies of Greece, Italy, Spain, and Ireland. The second memo was classified and blacked out by State Department censors when Clinton's emails were released. No doubt it was informative. In June of 2012, Clinton's deputy, Jake Sullivan, emailed her a depressing snapshot of reports that Greek banks were failing and that Merkel was against a Greek bailout. The next day, he reported the following in an email with the title, Greece, that Ambassador Dan Smith, quote, just spoke to the central bank governor of Greece and assessed that the economic situation was okay for now, quote unquote, provided that small depositors put money back into the banks, end quote. So here we have Clinton's deputy, Jake Sullivan, telling Clinton in an email, basically, the information that that Ambassador Dan Smith at that time, who was in Greece, that Dan Smith basically was having secret talks with the central bank governor of Greece. And the central bank governor had assessed that the economic situation was okay at that point, but they were thinking about doing a bail-in to save the economic situation. In other words, a bail-in is when you take money out of people's bank accounts in order to cover the bank's debts. And as we know with Greece, the talk about a bail-in has been discussed frequently. Back in 2013, as you may recall, Cyprus did a huge bail-in, unfortunately, on depositors, on Cypriot depositors of Cypriot banks. In other words, they took a certain percentage out of people's deposits in order to pay their debts, and I think it was imposed only on people that have 100,000 euros or more in their bank accounts. Regardless, that was completely evil, wrong, illegal. They should never have done it. It's a very, very vile practice. It's criminal. So here we already have basically this being discussed in the case of the Greek economic situation. Now, up until this very moment, that is still on the table in Greece, a Greek bail-in for Greece. It's being discussed. Several months ago in Austria, I read from a top financial publication that there was a huge Austrian bank that was too big to fail. So the government there basically imposed a bail-in on some of basically the depositors there, and they lost their money. That was unprecedented basically for all of Europe. And unfortunately, it's going to lead the road. It's going to create the slippery slope, creating basically a precedent for this to happen in other European member nations' banking systems. This is just psychotic. It's insane. So, unfortunately, that happened in Austria, and I hope it doesn't happen anywhere else, particularly, of course, Greece. But this has been on the table, like I said before, in Greece for 5-6 years now, ever since basically the whole Greek economic crisis started. So this is one of the reasons, too, that they created this whole system of capital controls in Greece back in July of last year. They created the system of capital controls to ensure, basically, that Greeks would not take their money out of Greece and flee the country, basically, thus creating a collapse. But the way they did it was very, very shrewd. It was very evil. It was very illegal. They should have placed it as a referendum to the Greek people. And I did a broadcast, I think it was last July this year, on exactly that topic. Continuing with the same article from Fox News. A few days later, Clinton asked Sullivan for a confidential State Department report entitled, quote, Solidarity Bonds, Greece Revised, end quote. He sent it to her adding, if you like, send it to WJC, end quote. Presumably a reference to William Jefferson Clinton, Hillary's husband. Clinton ordered an aide, quote, PLS, please, in other words, please print 2 copies, end quote, of the Greek bond report. The report was blackened out as a quote-unquote protected document when the emails were made public. Did Malvinsky benefit from his family connection? That's a question now that this article poses. Did Malvinsky benefit from his family connection? The emails show that Clinton did at least one official favor for her son-in-law. In August of 2012, she forwarded Deputy Secretary Thomas Nides an email from Malvinsky lobbying on behalf of his former Goldman Sachs colleague, Harry Siklas. Siklas is spelled S-I-K-L-A-S. Harry is of Greek descent, by the way. Continuing, Siklas and Goldman Sachs were invested in a deep-sea mining venture called Neptune Minerals. Siklas asked Malvinsky to broker a talk with Clinton about, quote, current legal issues and regulations, end quote, on deep-sea mining. Clinton ordered Nides to, quote, follow up on this request, end quote. Nides replied, quote, I'll get on it, end quote. Now, that is the end of the article. It's pretty revealing. I'm sure that more revelations will come out of Hillary Clinton's emails about Greece. Again, the title of this article is Clinton sought secret info on EU bailout plans as son-in-law's doomed hedge fund gambled on Greece. And as I stated before, Malcolm Malvinsky was a complete bubbling idiot. He lost all his money, and it serves him right. Now, what I'm going to do what I'm going to do is play for you a clip from a meeting that Hillary Clinton had back in spring of 2010 with the then Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou in Greece. And I want you to listen very closely to how these two people talk with each other. I want you to get a feel, basically, about the nature of their relationship. Because as you're going to see, these two are pretty quite chummy with each other. So stand by. Okay, I'm gonna play this clip now for you. It's in a documentary I just made on Clinton's role in the economic crisis. Most of it is in Greek, unfortunately, but anyway, listen to this clip. Most of it is in English, and get a feel for what's going on here between Hillary Clinton and the then Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou right around the spring of 2010. We're talking about this critical period where Clinton starts forming a relationship with this guy in order to basically start profiting off of what was going on in Greece. And bear in mind, too, that at this time, this is when Greece was about to sign, or probably already had signed, its first major bailout package with the Troika from the European Union. And that actually took place in May of 2010. So anyway, let's listen in.
Η θερμή υποδοχή που επιφύλαξε ο Γιώργος Παπανδρέου στη Χίλαρη Κλίντον ήταν ενδεικτική του κλίματος των συνομιλιών που ακολούθησαν. Μπροστά στις κάμερες, η επικεφαλής της Αμερικανικής διπλωματίας δεν έκρυψε το ενδιαφέρον της για το έργο του Θεόδωρου Στάμου που κοσμεί το Πρωθυπουργικό Γραφείο και τιτλοφορείται «Ατέρμονο πεδίο Δελφή». Hi! Oh, this is so pretty, George. I love that.
It's one of these old...
That's great.
This is a Greek artist, and I guess it's the Aegean or something like that.
I love it.
There's a little island there, one of those rock islands.
So neat.
Isn't it nice?
That is fabulous.
So it's just, we wanted to have something more modern, because usually it has very heavy kind of...
Yes,
old
yes,
things
right.
like that.
Well, you chose well. That's
right.
fabulous. I have
Now, that was very, very telling there.
been often to, I guess, the mothership.
So basically what the Greek media was saying here is that basically the warm welcome of George Papandreou to Hillary Clinton was very indicative of the political climate there between these two political leaders. So basically they were talking about too how the State Department officials there with Hillary Clinton were basically enthralled about basically the paintings and the works basically of some famous Greek painter that George Papandreou used to decorate his offices there in, of course, the Greek Parliament building. That's basically what they were saying. So even the Greek press knew basically, hey, these two are cozying up with each other. What's going on here? So George, in his office, was pointing out to Hillary Clinton some beautiful Greek paintings, and Hillary Clinton is like enthralled. Oh, that's so neat, that's so fabulous, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'd like to play for you now a clip of Hillary Clinton right around the spring of 2010. Actually, no, this is more right around the time she took office in the State Department in 2009. Now, the reason why I'm going to play this clip is because it shows Clinton at an official meeting of the Council on Foreign Relations in New York. Why is this important? Because the Council on Foreign Relations is like the Brookings Institute. It's another secret but open, quote-unquote, society. And since the 1920s, has basically been manipulating U.S. politics behind the scenes. Pay close attention now. Pay close attention to what Hillary says here. And basically, you'll find out where she takes her orders from. Because as you're going to see, or as you're going to hear in this clip, she takes her orders straight from this organization. I kid you not. Again, we have basically an admission from the mainstream news media, more specifically from C-SPAN, that there's a conspiracy going on against American people. When the State Department when the U.S. Secretary of State says straight out that she takes her orders from a secret society, and when she says it on live TV, I mean, hello, these people have no shame. They don't care if their conspiracy gets leaked out because they know that the majority of Americans are a bunch of dumbed-down fools that are not going to do anything about it. So let's just listen in.
I have been often to, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future. I mean, Richard just gave what could be described as a mini version of my remarks in talking about the issues that confront us. But I look out at this audience filled with not only many friends and colleagues, but people who have served in prior administrations. And so there is never a time when the inbox is not full. Shortly before I started at the State Department, a former Secretary of State called me with this advice: don't try to do too much. And it seemed like a wise admonition if only it were possible. But the international agenda today is unforgiving. 2 wars, conflict in the Middle East, ongoing threats of violent extremism and nuclear proliferation, global recession, climate change, hunger and disease, and a widening gap between the rich and the poor.
Did you hear that? She says, I'm glad to be here at the Council on Foreign Relations to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in office. I mean, this is just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling that there's not enough people awake out there about all this stuff who see that there's a conspiracy that's going on against the American people. I mean, this woman just straight out said she takes her orders from the Council on Foreign Relations. And then she said something else very interesting, which may be revealed in the Wikileaks leaks about Hillary Clinton's emails from the State Department. She said the following. She goes, there's not a day when the inbox is not full. She's talking about the inbox of the State Department. The infamous State Department inbox that has been talked about for at least a year now, constantly in the media. This inbox, basically, the same inbox that has revealed to us all of Clinton's secrets during her tenure as the Secretary of State. So here we have her admitting again in broad daylight that her inbox is full of emails from where? From the Council on Foreign Relations. Now, why is that bad? Excuse me, she's communicating with a think tank group. She's communicating with a secret society using the email from the State Department. If that doesn't tell you something, nothing will. Now, of course, today, U.S. politicians communicating with think tank groups is not a big deal. They all do it. Everyone's doing it, as the saying goes. But this is illegal. This is wrong. It's unconstitutional. A high U.S. political official does not have the right to go to meetings of secret societies because obviously the secret societies are going to manipulate them. They're going to tell them how to run the country. That's why this is illegal and it's wrong. But everyone does it. And no one in the Congress says anything about this. And these secret societies have been allowed to operate in America for decades. The Council on Foreign Relations, like I said, has been around since the 1920s. The former late, great Eustace Mullins, whose successor happens to be yours truly, mentioned all this in his writings. So, basically, Hillary Clinton is admitting everything. I mean, she's communicating with the Council on Foreign Relations using the State Department emails. And God knows what she was sending to members of the Council on Foreign Relations. And again, the Council on Foreign Relations is there to manipulate U.S. policy. They're a think tank group. They belong to the New World Order. They belong to the Illuminati. That has been proven over and over again, and I'm not even going to get into that because all you got to do is just Google it or watch a couple documentaries on YouTube, and you'll find out everything. You'll become an expert on the subject overnight. It's not a big deal, but about, researching it because the information's out there. That's what I mean. So, to recap this broadcast, Hillary Clinton has basically been uncovered in so many different ways with regards to her illegal activities as the U.S. Secretary of State. She has been involved in scandals all over the world. She is the one behind the Syrian crisis, which I've talked about on this broadcast before. All the emails that we have, thanks to Wikileaks, reveal all this stuff. Now, Fox News did this huge report because they had combed through her emails, and they found out that she's the main driving force behind the Greek economic crisis. And I just read to you excerpts from all of this. We also have reports from the Greek media back in December of last year talking about the same thing, which is tied in with all of this. But lately, though, Wikileaks has been able to basically create this huge trove, this huge archive of Hillary Clinton's emails, which contains at least 33,000 emails. And if one wants to basically dig through it, they have to get permission from the federal government through the Freedom of Information Act, and it's a lot of tedious work. But we need to continue to do this as journalists and as researchers. This is John Kountouris with Greek News On Demand. Visit our website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. Go to our top bar and find our English articles, and you can read everything we publish in English. My personal website is johnkountouris.com, JOHNKOUN as in Nancy, T as in Tom, OURIS.com, or just look me up on Facebook, or send me an email through GreekNewsOnDemand.com if you'd like to communicate with me. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. God bless, and let's continue to uncover these people's crimes for the salvation of this country, for Greece, and for the whole world, for that matter. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is JJ Inc., and when I'm on planet Earth, I listen to UC